that's why I always say I don't trust Dallas at all. Not one tiny little bit, because I don't think they ultimately know how to win. And so I would put the Eagles right there with them, with a chance to win this year, or chance to win this division, because at the end of the day, you can agree or disagree with the moves, but Lurie and Roseman are trying to win, and they're focused on winning, and first and foremost. And I can't say that that's true in Dallas.
Appreciate you streaming on in here on Bird 365 with McMullen and McDonald. A good friend of the show, good enough to hop aboard. He's one of the best who cover the entire league. Hall of Fame voter, football author, Jason Cole joined us here on Birds 365. Jason, how's your spring/summer going?
Fantastic. I'm in Pittsburgh for a week. Who wouldn't want to be in Pittsburgh for a week?
Yeah, Western PA. Well, we're in southeastern Pennsylvania. So now hop, skip, and a jump, Jason.
Yeah, I was last week. I was walking along the Schuylkill River. So
there we go.
All right. Well, then what brings you to Pennsylvania, both east and west?
Well, my son was last Friday and Saturday, was in his the final rowing event of his college career. So
nice.
There, he was at the Dad Vales event on the Schuylkill, over there by the boathouses. You know what I'm talking about? That area.
Boathouse Row, beautiful.
Yep.
Where does he go to school? Is he Stanford guy as well, Jason?
I wish he goes to Stetson, I'm very happy with. So he's actually graduated from Stetson, and he's going to business school now. So he's well on his way. Yes.
Nice.
So we have
going in and out a little bit, Jason. You said Stetson. Is that where he rose for?
Yes, he went to Stetson University.
Yeah. All right. And did they win? What did they place?
They didn't win, but it was all good. He's had plenty of victories over his career, so it was sweet to see him on his last event.
Very, very nice. And you had plenty of victories. Let's shift to the NFL when you're covering football in South Florida, whether it was for the Herald or I believe the Sun Sentinel. Is that correct? Back in the day?
Back in the day.
I don't know if you're still close to things going on in Miami, but I do want to start there because I think it was such an interesting offseason story in the Michigan men sort of getting together, sort of rumor, sort of innuendo that maybe Tom Brady did all of this to the short retirement to do the reversal, buy into the Miami Dolphins and become a part owner, play for the team. How much do you buy into that behind the scenes jockeying and what was going on between Stephen Ross and Tom Brady?
I think there was something to it. I don't think it's as well developed as some people who are reporting it want to presume that it is. I think that Tom had like a lot of balls in the air, and one of them we've seen play out, which is the contract, right? So I think he's just planning the end game of what his life is going to be. Now he moved to Miami, which gives you every indication that was also part of this. But I think that's also because that plays into his wife's career as well. So the whole modeling part of this is part of that. So yeah, I believe some of that. But at the end of the day, look, he went back to Tampa after they solved the coaching issue, and made him happy there. I think it's pretty plain to see that this is his final season, and that's how it's going to play out, because everything he's doing is end of career setting up for the future. And all his activities this offseason have very little to do with football, which if I was the Buccaneers, frankly, I'd be a little bit concerned about it at this point, that he's really tuned out to his career. But, what are you really going to say to Tom Brady? You're going to take him and you're going to be happy with him at this point.
I think that when push comes to shove and the games get underway, I think Tom Brady will be Tom Brady, and he'll be completely dedicated to it. Is this the year that Father Time finally rears its ugly head for Tom? We never know that. But what happens if it doesn't go well and the Bucs either don't make the playoffs or make the playoffs and get eliminated quickly? Is Todd Bowles the guy to lead them going forward?
I think we're going to see how this plays out. I mean, look, that organization is in a year-to-year mode. They're trying. That's why they have one of the oldest rosters in the league. They had the oldest roster in the league last year by far. I think they had 14 guys over the age of 30 years old by the end of the season, which is ancient by NFL standards. It used to be fairly routine. It's not anymore. And so they're in to win now. And if they don't win now, I think Tom walks away, you're in almost a teardown mode, with the exception of a few players on that roster. You know, the wide receiver you keep, the young kid that they have out of Penn State. But other than that, there's not a lot there to me that you would say, I know I'm going to have 5 years from now, maybe a couple of the defensive backs and the linebacker, but the rest of it is a lot of older guys who are on, basically 1-year deals.
That's interesting, Jason, because you talk about this mentality, and I think it's grown over the years of being there. There are certain teams going year to year. They're all in. We know the Los Angeles Rams, they win the Super Bowl. Les Snead with the F them picks T-shirt. There seems to be two camps in the NFL. We're either ready. I talk about it all the time with the Eagles here in Philadelphia. They went from we're not ready to everybody's so excited after the draft because they get A.J. Brown, Jordan Davis, and now they bring in James Bradbury. Have you noticed a shift over the years, because you've been covering this league a long time, where it's got, I don't want to say it's an NBA-like level, but you have these two camps with the, well, we're not a legit contender, so we can't do this, versus the teams that think they're ready to win?
I think that what you have is a lot of teams that you've got the quarterback in place. So if you got the quarterback in place, what do we have to do around him? Because then we can buy everything else. And then there are other teams that are trying to build it, and there are exceptions in every rule here. Okay, our defense is good enough that we can compensate for the quarterback a little bit. Like we're San Francisco, where we have Garoppolo, and we have everything else is decent around the guys. Now let's take our shot here. And I think this year maybe where they take their shot, because I have this sneaky feeling that Garoppolo is going to end up playing for San Francisco this year, and that they're going to try and make a run with him because the players there and even the coaches really truly believe in Garoppolo. Now that's just a sneaky thought, and they could certainly change that if they get a good enough offer for Garoppolo. But if they don't, they may say, let's just go for it for this 1 year. We'll bring back Alex Mack. We've got Juszczyk on, basically a final year or two of his deal. Maybe we'll bring in one other guy. We'll get Deebo Samuel paid for on a contract where he'll get paid over the next 2 or 3 years, and then we can jettison him. So they're going to do kind of the same thing. But yeah, I think there's this thought, go all in, because the cap is so big, but the cost for most of your players is really small. You can fit those really expensive guys in more than ever before because the minimum contracts haven't gone up commensurate to the cap. And I don't want to get too far into capology, but the ultimate thing is it allows you to take a shot with expensive players.
It's funny that you do just that, because that's what John and I were talking at a time. They got the Bradbury thing done. We don't know all the details of the contract yet, but some people thought that the Eagles wouldn't value that position enough. They did, paid him what I thought was market value. So the next question becomes Jesse Bates. The Eagles could still use an upgraded safety if he's not going to show up in Cincinnati. I said, I think they've really stretched their limit under the cap. I don't think they could fit a guy like Bates in, but you're saying there's just more flexibility in the cap because it just keeps going up and up and up. You
Mhm.
see the Eagles a player if this young man wants to become the highest paid safety in the league, which is what I think his asking price is going to be. You think the Eagles are in that market?
They could be in that market if they want to, especially because they're not paying anything for the quarterback right now, right?
Yeah.
So they have money to play with. And look, Howie Roseman is from that, Joe Banner, Kevin Demoff school of thinking, which is you can go out and find money. If your philosophy is, among your coach and your owner, if you get agreement from them so that you have coverage on this, you can go out and get all those guys, right? You just better get coverage, and I mean that agreement that you're not going to be the one held responsible if this doesn't work, right? If they sign off on it, sure, I can find it because I can. The difference between like a $2 and a $3 million linebacker isn't that big a deal. The difference between a $3 million and a $3 million safety and a $10 million safety is pretty big. Okay, so if you're going to go out and get that guy, go out and get that guy, and you can find the money elsewhere, or push it off into the future. And again, especially if you have the cheap quarterback. My thing about the Eagles is I thought they were playing for the draft next year with some of the trades that they made in order to big quarterback. So maybe I don't know where their philosophy is. Like I don't know, are they pushing in for this year, or were they pushing in for, okay, we'll see if Jalen Hurts can be that guy. We're going to take one more shot with it, knowing full well that next year is the big year for the quarterbacks with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, right?
Yeah.
Which way are you going with this one? That would be
Well, and that's the thing, Jason. It looks like they're trying to serve those two masters. They want to be relevant right now, but they want that safety net in case Jalen Hurts doesn't develop to where, because you say, and I bring this up all the time, and you're right, they're not paying for the quarterback right now, but this is it. Next year, you have to start talking extension. And extensions, think about it this way, Jason. Jalen Hurts, for whatever you think about him and whatever you think about the term Pro Bowl alternate, was a Pro Bowl alternate quarterback last year, and his team made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, if that kind of guy gets to the second contract off 2 years like that, so say good enough to be top half of the NFL quarterbacks, good enough to make playoffs. What does that start out? 30 million a year, 35 million a year extension with the cap keep going up and up and up. And that's a tough decision because do you want to give Jalen Hurts, who's pretty good, but not great, that kind of money? That to me is a really, really difficult decision for the Eagles.
Well, that's the part where you sometimes go year to year by using the franchise tag, right? And just let it play out. And, you say all the right things publicly. We'd like to get a long-term deal done, but you don't. And you let him really ultimately prove it, right? And I think that, that's going to happen in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. I think they're going to play year to year with Lamar Jackson, especially because his way of playing is so injury-prone and so up and down. Like, why put $40 million into him a year on a 5-year deal? It's just not going to work. So, to me, they sort of do the same thing with Jalen Hurts, and play year to year for a while, or just they find out this year, is he good enough or not? But it's kind of like what Washington did with Kirk Cousins. They wanted him at a certain price, but they weren't willing to go long term, so they played year to year until they got out of the Kirk Cousins deal, and then they shifted immediately to Alex Smith. That was a good move. They upgraded a quarterback with Alex Smith. He unfortunately got hurt, and essentially ended his career. But they had the right idea. They drew a line on what is Kirk Cousins worth.
And if you think they're going that way in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, it would only make sense here in Philadelphia because Jalen Hurts is the closest thing to Lamar Jackson in the league. If there's a Lamar Jackson light, he would be playing right here in Philadelphia. All right, I want to bring it back to 2022. Eagles have made these moves this offseason, adding a top-flight wide receiver, adding a very good CB2 and James Bradbury, having a very good draft, adding a good edge pass rusher to be determined how he's going to be used. We're putting some faith in the defensive coordinator that Gannon's going to be able to get him double-digit sacks like he's had the last 2 years with two different teams. Have the Eagles done enough to catch the Cowboys? Cowboys won this division kind of going away. You look at the Cowboys offseason moves, and it's not, I think, as much of a slam dunk that they're better than they were last year. Your estimation right now, Eagles, Cowboys, who's got the better roster?
Got a hat? Can I put the names in a hat and just draw it out? Look, technically the Cowboys are better, all right, because they got a better quarterback, right, and I think their receivers are slightly better overall, even with getting rid of Amari Cooper, right. I think the tight end is really good in Dallas. So I would give them a slight edge at those skill positions on offense. The rest of it is pretty much a wash. So yeah, I like Dallas a little bit better, but it's Dallas. And they're a team that always gets ahead of itself. Like they think because they had a good year, they're automatically going to have a good year next year, and that they are just rolling towards a Super Bowl victory, right? That's just their mentality, and it has been for the better part of 30 years. You know, ever since they had that great run, they think, "Oh, that's coming right now. We're just waiting for it to happen." There's more to it than that, and so they're poorly managed. They're always distracted. I mean, look, this is a perfect Cowboys offseason, right? How many distractions, and where do they start? Look at the owner is a giant distraction. The owner is a distraction.
Oh, yeah. Well, the owner's doing radio shows once a week. The owner does press conferences once, it's unbelievable.
Right. He's been a distraction for forever, but especially now when, he's in the middle of, this whole thing about whether he had a child out of wedlock. Like all of this, it never ends in Dallas. All the things that they do that have nothing to do with winning. All right. And so that's why I always say I don't trust Dallas at all. Not one tiny little bit, because I don't think they ultimately know how to win. And so I would put the Eagles right there with them, with a chance to win this year or chance to win this division, because at the end of the day, you can agree or disagree with the moves, but Lurie and Roseman are trying to win, and they're focused on winning, and first and foremost. And I can't say that that's true in Dallas.
That's a
Mike
good thing.
McCarthy. Yeah, sorry, Jody. Mike McCarthy probably already looking over his shoulder at Sean Payton. I mean, everyone's assuming.
Yeah, I think that's less of a problem. Like McCarthy knows. Like I don't think he looks over his shoulder, because that just goes with the territory, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you just know that that your owner is capricious. I mean, literally in every way, he's a capricious human being. Okay, so you don't know where this is going to go in a year or two. So you coach and you deal with it, right? McCarthy made that bet, but he did a nice job last year, until that one strategic play at the end of the game against the 49ers. Now, I would also go back in that game to say, okay, Mike, what did you do in the first, 58 minutes of that game? That lost control of it.
Yeah.
But the 49ers are a pretty good team. And so, that was a pretty tough matchup. So I think Mike McCarthy is a good coach. I don't know that he's a good enough coach to overcome the owner.
Jason, there are a couple of big-time players that changed teams, changed conferences this year. Russell Wilson from Seattle to Denver, Devontae Adams from Green Bay to Las Vegas. We're, at least John and I, and I'm well on record saying the AFC is better than the NFC, if not significantly better than the NFC. Was it trending that way? Is it just those two guys who moved the needle that much? What do you make as far as a difference between total conference capabilities, AFC to NFC this year in 2022?
Well, yeah, I mean the Chargers loaded up too. I mean, and look, Khalil Mack is aging, but they still got him, and that's that's a nice addition. Now there's a little subtraction for Kansas City, but it helps Miami with the Tyreek Hill deal. I'm trying to think of who else. Buffalo got better this year. They went and got Von Miller, which gives them another edge rusher who you can trust.
Whatever you think about Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan.
Wow, Matt Ryan. Yeah, Carson.
Yeah, Matt Ryan's an upgrade from Carson Wentz a year ago, and that's a pretty solid team, right? So I think that makes Indianapolis better. I have no question about that.
I go Jason, I go Josh Allen, I go Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. They just have the better young quarterbacks on the AFC side.
That's all part of it. I totally agree. So in a sense, it's trending that way, but there was a huge infusion of talent overall into these AFC teams, and there are teams in the AFC that will miss the playoffs that are better than probably the 4, 5, 6, 7 seeds in the NFC, whoever makes that. That's certainly true. And so it's going to be a really, really tough race out of the AFC. I'll say this. I fear that Kansas City is going to take a huge step back and might not even make the playoffs.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
they are against really high-quality opponents.
That looks like a tough division on paper. That looks like the best division on paper, the AFC West. And, the Chiefs are going to have to play a different way offensively. Now, we had somebody on, Jody, I forget, remind me if you remember, but mentioned that some teams were playing so much cover 2 against Kansas City last year, and they're playing their safeties 20, 25 yards off the ball to try to eliminate the big play. And the Chiefs had some trouble with that. Then they seemed to figure it out a little bit, and then they struggled again late. It's just is this just the natural evolution of Andy Reid figuring out, all right, they zigged, I got to zag, I got to go in a different direction. We just can't stretch the field at all times.
I think if that's the thinking, it's silly. Like Tyreek, you don't trade away Tyreek Hill for any. I mean, I'd rather have a team playing at safeties 20 yards back, even to take away everything, because that means I'm going to be able to run the ball. So I think they just couldn't afford Tyreek Hill, or they came to the conclusion they couldn't afford Tyreek Hill, and they didn't want to pay that Devontae Adams contract, right?
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I think you pay that guy. There are certain guys you have to pay them whatever they want, and you take advantage of the opportunity you have now. I think that Andy Reid is a Hall of Fame coach, but we will look back at this last 4 or 5 years and say they should have had 2 or 3 titles in this run. They should have taken advantage of this moment in time much more than they did, and that they're going to take this huge step back starting this year, because they do have that tough first 8 games. They are replacing Tyreek Hill, as we said. We've talked about Spagnuolo. You guys know Spags really well. And he's a great teacher and a great defensive coordinator, but he always starts slowly in seasons. And last year they were 3-4, and they barely got by the Giants, and they barely got by Green Bay, the Green Bay team that was starting Jordan Love,
right,
to get themselves to 5-4 at a certain point, and then kind of take off. But the bigger problem is, I don't think Andy, and you guys know this, I don't think Andy plays the he plays this even keel approach so much, right? Like let's get through it. I don't think that's going to work in the first 8 games next season. I think that's the opposite approach of what you really should do.
Very interesting. All right. And it was Matt Verderam who came out and talked to us about how much Andy had to figure out how to play against teams that were playing 20 yards back. I want to jump back into the Eagles division with you, Jason. Last year, the Eagles did get picked off by the Giants in New York. Jalen Hurts had certainly his worst regular season game. We can compare that one with the playoff game against Tampa, which also wasn't good. But he had a bad game in New York, and that one loss in the division basically decided the Eagles weren't going to be able to catch the Cowboys, and that's the goal this year. Which of the two other teams, and when I say other, I mean not Dallas, Washington or New York, is more likely to jump up and bite the Eagles and pull an upset? Because I think the Eagles will be favored in all 4 games against those 2 other teams. Who do you like better as of right now, Washington or New York?
Washington by far. I like Ron Rivera and his coaching style. Look, I'm not a Carson Wentz believer. Don't get me wrong. I think that ship has sailed. But whatever Carson Wentz can be at this point in time in his career, Rivera will get it out of him, and that's better than what Daboll's going to be able to get out of Daniel Jones, right? Like that's just the way it is. And like, there's nobody on the Giants that scares me. There are guys on the Washington team that, I don't know if scares are quite word, but it's supreme concern with that defense. Like they can play defense. So Washington's the better club out of those two. And I'm not saying it's a huge difference either in this case. And I think that ultimately a lot of these teams are going to have inordinately good records since they're playing the AFC South this year, and they're going to clean up on some of those teams in the AFC South. You're going to see teams with, the top end of that's probably going to be 12 or 13 wins, followed by an 11, and then a 9 and an 8. So everybody's going to have what looks like good records, but they're not great teams.
Last one for me. I want to take it out and follow Jason on Twitter at JasonCole62. I want to take it out to the whole NFC, Jason, because I think we have the reigning Super Bowl champions, but we know how difficult it is to repeat in this league. Tampa Bay's got Tom back. We talked about that. Green Bay managed to work out things with Aaron Rodgers, but Devontae Adams is now out with the Raiders. Those 3 teams look like they're going to be good. We know they're going to be good. You see that next level team in the NFC that maybe has a chance to take advantage of an easier path than the AFC teams.
So your 3 teams were Tampa,
Rams, Packers. So the 4th team.
I think the 49ers are as good.
49ers?
Well, I mean, they beat Green Bay.
Yeah. Special teams wise.
Right. They beat the Rams 2 out of 3 during the season overall. And, I mean, that's a really, really good team, depth-wise. And they can really run it, and they're physical. To me, the 49ers are right there. And
I do love Kyle Shanahan. I think besides Bill and Andy, I think Kyle Shanahan's the best coach in the NFL. I've been saying it for a while.
I like Kyle as well. Sometimes he's a little full of himself, but he's a Shanahan, so that's that's okay. They're just terrific. I think New Orleans, look, that team managed to win 8 games with a carousel of quarterbacks. I was talking to Jim Trotter about this 2 days ago. They went through quarterback hell last year, and they still managed to win 8 games. And their defense is still really good. They'll have Michael Thomas back this year. They got to figure out the Alvin Kamara situation because he's probably going to get suspended for a while. But there's talent there. There's no Sean Payton, so I don't know if talent is good enough to handle this situation. But I do like what they have.
All right, last one for me, Jason. Since you're in Pittsburgh, maybe you got a vibe of that city, and it's important this year because the Eagles play the Steelers week 8 after the bye. Kenny Pickett, despite his small hands, was the only quarterback taken in the first round, and that was by the Steelers. They had signed Mitch Trubisky earlier this year. What kind of season do you see for the team in Steeltown?
Look, every time you talk to Tomlin, you feel this sense of enthusiasm. And I think they're going to have to play representative, tough guy football, and their defense is good. I mean, they still got Cam Hayward, you still got T.J. Watt. There are tools there. Najee Harris is a nice looking running back. The receivers took a step backwards last year, but I think there's still talent there. I think Pickett is a Matt Hasselbeck knockoff at his best, which is okay. I mean,
that was solid for a while.
Yeah, but he's not the guy you take in the first round. Like when you take a quarterback in the first round, you're saying you're not going, okay, we got the next Matt Hasselbeck. Like that's not the dream.
Yeah.
So I think they're in a little bit of a. Dare I say some Matt Malone years or Mark Malone?
Mark Malone.
Mark Malone. Yeah. There you go.
It's a nice reference.
Yeah, I think that they're for older fans, like there's a dip here that's coming offensively, and they've got some rebuilding to do. So I think this is like a 500 team. So overall, and I know that you can't really be 500, but 8-9 wins. Yeah, I can see that.
Now, since Jody brought this up, I do want to sneak this in, Jason, with the Steelers, because you've been around, so they let Dan Marino out of Pittsburgh because of some off the field sort of whispers, and I don't think that organization has ever gotten over that. Did they not want to make that same mistake?
Yeah, the old Yunzers in this town, like to talk about. Yeah, we let Marino get out of town. Like, yeah. I was talking with Art Rooney Jr., the guy who did personnel for forever, the son of yesterday, and he even brought up Marino. Like it's been,
can't get over it,
guys. It's been 40 years.
Yeah,
right? Like
they cannot get over it.
Let the Marino thing go. Well, I mean, let's talk about every Western PA quarterback they did let go. Let's go to Unitas. Yeah. They didn't go get Namath when they could have gotten Namath, right? Yeah. Marino, let it all go. You got what you got. You've had two great quarterbacks, in the history of the organization. You're fine, right? Let's not.
Yeah, the Steelers are fine. Yes.
Yeah, they're okay. But yeah, there's a lot of angst over having let Marino get out of town still.
All right, I'm gonna call on you two football savants to correct me if I'm wrong. Van Pelt. Wasn't he a Pittsburgh quarterback?
Alex Van Pelt was a Pitt quarterback. Yeah.
Right. Did he do Steeler time? Did they try and correct the Marino?
I do not. I don't even remember.
Yeah. Why are you bringing how relevant is Alex?
Because I'm thinking that's more of what Pickens is like. Alex Van Pelt than Marino. We're confident of the Marino. We know he's not going to be Marino.
Stop.
Yeah, we know. I got to look up Alex Van Pelt. He was drafted by the Steelers in the 8th round of the 1993
draft. They've done this before. It's not the first time they tried to correct the Marino mistake.
He never played for the Steelers.
Kenny Pickett, the Pickett kid is the best quarterback of this draft class. They got the best quarterback of this draft class.
That's true.
That does not good.
Does not say much for this year's draft class.
That is exactly right.
Jason, great stuff. Appreciate you coming on. Tell your son we said congrats. Keep getting out there rowing. Sorry we missed you on the Schuylkill. Have a good time in Pittsburgh.
Take care, guys. Be good.